Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. I'm Dustin, and it's no shave November, so that's why this looks the way that it does. And just to warn you, I typically maintain the beard through late December, so it's here to stay. If you don't like it, sorry, you can click unsubscribe now. The beard's gonna stay. But you know what? This is not a beard care YouTube channel. Maybe it should be. But for now, we don't talk about beards, we talk about books. Particularly in this video, books that I've read in the month of November. The first book that I read was actually a reread called A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. This was a reread because, for those of you that have been following on this channel, you know that the fourth and final book in the Ember Quartet comes out this week, actually, is Sky Beyond the Storm, which I'll get to soon. But I wanted to reread the series so that I would be ready for the conclusion to this epic young adult fantasy series that I fell in love with late 2016, and I have been following along with each new book release. Sabaa is an incredible person. I've been able to, of course, follow her on social media, meet her a couple times, converse with her a couple times, and I love the worlds that she has built here in the Ember series, the characters that she has developed, the stories that she has told. I'm not going to get too much into the plot here because that will give away some of the earlier books, and most of my channel is spoiler-free unless exclusively and expressly stated. But here in A Reaper at the Gates, we continue with the stories of Laia, Elias, and Helene as they go forward in the various things that the previous books have set them up for. Elias is facing his new responsibilities. Laia is trying to go and thwart the efforts of the Nightbringer, and Helene, Aquila, is doing her best to both serve the Emperor and protect those that she loves. I think after rereading it this time that this is still my third favorite out of the three books that have already been released in the series, but I enjoyed it more this reread than my initial reading of it. This was only the second time that I read the book, and it's still slow in parts. I think that it could have benefited from 100 pages cut, maybe. Probably not that many, 50 pages cut, or some things reworked. It does drag a little bit there in the middle, but the payoff is there. The character development continues. The love relationships, but that are brutal and not fully fulfilled, but also fully realized, are all there. Man, Sabaa just does an incredible job telling a story. I can't wait for the conclusion. I've already talked about it too much now. I haven't been changing any of the ratings of the books as I've been reading through, so I'm 4 out of 5 stars on this book. Every once in a while, I need a palate cleanser, and I do that by reading short classic works, typically of sci-fi, because those are some of the shorter ones. You don't have many short classic fantasy that I can recall off the top of my head. But I did that here with Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. It was first published in 1963, and if you've read any of his works, you know that he is steeped into satire, that he's got a unique sense of humor, that he's got a really just unique sense of storytelling, and that persists here in this book. Cat's Cradle begins as a story detailing a journalist's attempt at investigating the life of one of the creators of the atomic bomb, but the book ends as a bleak allegory about the annihilation of all life on Earth. That's kind of just how it works here. And so at the beginning, the first half, I found myself sensibly chuckling time and time again, but then by the end, I was kind of like the humor and the writing style, those things either work for you or they don't. And for me, I get it and I understand it, and I know what Vonnegut was trying to do and what he succeeded in doing. It's just not my favorite type of literature, and it's classic. It's classic, so it works there. And I always try to rate these books and review these classic books in that lens, not trying to compare it to today's standards, but comparing it to other classics of the time. So I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, thinking that it definitely deserves its place in classic literature, even though it's not my favorite kind of writing. Now, we come to the final 2 stories that I read this month. And you might already be asking, 4 books? You only went through 4 books this month? You typically go through 6 or 7, or sometimes, if you're crazy, 8. But this time, only 2. Was I sick? No. Did the beard get in the way? Maybe, but no. Like, the reason why I only had 4 books total this month is because one of them we'll get to shortly is a mammoth of a title, and the other one was simply a setup for that. Really, I preserved all of my November reading for these final 2 books. The other 2 just kind of hopped on the bandwagon. And it was NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, and I spent the entire month writing my first novel. All of that being said, let's start a little bit lightweight with Chard. It's actually an audiobook only, an ebook only currently. And it will be out in print eventually, but this is 3.5 of the Stormlight Archive. It takes place between the 3rd book, Oathbringer, and the 4th book that just recently came out November 17th, called Rhythm of War. And it is a little novella, a side story of the character Risen. Now, I came to this story expecting it to be just that, a little side story that is fun, maybe with a little bit of levity and slight reveals that is just prepping us for Stormlight Archive 4, Rhythm of War. What I did not expect was to come to such a moving, compelling story that unveiled Cosmere secrets in a massive way for one of the very first times. It is a quick fantasy story, and it is quirky and it is fun, but the two primary characters here, Risen and even the Lopen, which we know from previous stories, he's one of the Bridge 4 crewmates, are both disabled. And it's incredible in a fantasy series to have Risen, for example, who has this fantasy wheelchair that is being constructed for her, and her having to come to terms and grips with her recent condition of losing the ability in her legs, and how that affects her, and how that affects others around her, and how magic just doesn't solve the problem, and how maybe now she's not even looking for a solution to the problem, but how to live her new life in the sense of there's a deeper thing that's going on here rather than just telling a fantasy story. We've got real people experiencing real things, and that's something that Sanderson has done for a while now, especially here in the Stormlight Archive, and something that others have found to applaud him for, and that I come right alongside and say, Sanderson, you do an incredible job representing many different people from many different backgrounds, dealing with many different things. And it was incredible here to hear of Risen and Lopen sharing some similarities while being 2 totally different characters. I loved the story. I loved the character of Risen. I loved the Cosmere reveals that came along with it. Can it be skipped before going to the Rhythm of War? Yeah, absolutely. And you're not going to miss too entirely much. But should it be read before going into Rhythm of War? Absolutely. I gave it 5 stars. It's a wonderful story. May be my favorite Sanderson, not novella, but Stormlight novella at this point. Which leads me to Rhythm of War. I have to sing it. I'm so excited about it. Listen, I'm not going to get in depth in a mini review right here because this book is 1,230 pages long. I am actually going to do 2 reviews on my channel soon. There will be annotations here for our normal spoiler-free review of the book, and then shortly there will be a spoiler-filled review that might even be me and in a discussion with one of my friends who read the book along with me as we talk about the book in its entirety. But for now, let's suffice to say that I got Rhythm of War on its release date, November 17th, and I finished Rhythm of War by November 30th because it is exceptional. At the end of reading it, I had to determine for myself, is it my new favorite Stormlight Archive novel? Words of Radiance is up there for so many people. It is an incredible title, and it was my favorite. But I will say here and now that Rhythm of War has surpassed that, just barely. I think that Sanderson's character development, dealing with mental illnesses that many of the characters deal with, and just the progression of the story and the stakes has just grown to an epic level. And we're only on book 4 of 5 in the first arc and book 4 of 10 in the Stormlight Archive as a whole. Where are we going from here? I gave Rhythm of War 5 out of 5 stars. It is my favorite book in the Stormlight Archive thus far. I would imagine that he's only set it up, Sanderson has only set it up to surpass my expectations and my love for the series with book 5, because he's going to have to wrap up a lot within that final, 1,500 pages that it's going to be. But I have full trust in the man at this point that he can do nothing wrong. Stormlight Archive, I'm here for the long haul and for the journey, and am honored to be here for that. With all of that awkward gushiness out of the way, these are the few books, but very important books that I read in the month of November. Let me know what you read in the comments down below, and if you've read any of these books and have any opinions one way or another, you agree with me or you disagree with me, I'd love to hear that in the comments as well. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, and there's a bell thing too, so that you'll get the notifications that I release a video every week, if not 2. It's been 2 recently, if not even more. And so make sure that you click that bell, and we'll see you in the next video.